Father kicked me out because my stepmother doesn't like me. I always had a strained relationship with my stepmother, Linda. She came into my life when I was just a teenager, after my biological mother passed away. From the very beginning, she made it clear that she did not approve of me and my presence in her life. I never quite understood why she felt this way, but I tried my best to stay out of her way and be respectful. As the years went by, things only seemed to get worse. Linda's family also didn't seem to like me very much. They would make snide remarks whenever I was around, and I always felt like I was being judged. Despite this, I tried my best to be polite and keep my distance. But then things took a turn for the worse when I turned 21. My father, who had always been my rock and my biggest supporter, suddenly turned against me. He sat me down one evening and told me that I was no longer welcome in their home. He said that Linda and her family had made it clear that they did not want me around, and he had no choice but to ask me to leave. I was devastated. I couldn't understand how my own father could turn his back on me like this. I begged and pleaded with him, trying to reason with him, but he was unmoved. He told me that I had to leave by the end of the week. I had no choice but to pack my bags and leave the only home I had ever known. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. I felt lost and alone. I ended up couch surfing for a few weeks, staying with friends who were kind enough to take me in. But it was a temporary solution, and I knew I couldn't rely on them forever. I started looking for a job, anything that would help me get back on my feet. I eventually landed a job at a local cafe, working long hours just to make ends meet. It was a far cry from the comfortable life I had known before, but I was determined to make it on my own. As time went by, I slowly started to rebuild my life. I found a small apartment to rent, and I made some new friends who became like family to me. I learned to rely on myself, to be independent and self-sufficient. But despite all this, a part of me still longed for the love and acceptance of my father. I reached out to him a few times, trying to mend our broken relationship, but he was always cold and distant. It hurt to see how easily he had cast me aside, as if I meant nothing to him. One day, I received a letter in the mail from my father. In it, he apologized for his actions and admitted that he had made a mistake in disowning me. He said that he missed me and wanted to make amends. I was torn. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to let bygones be bygones and start fresh, but another part of me couldn't forget the pain and the betrayal I had felt. In the end, I decided to meet with my father and hear him out. We sat down over a cup of coffee, and he poured his heart out to me. He explained that Linda and her family had manipulated him into turning against me, and that he had regretted it ever since. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine remorse he felt for his actions, and in that moment, I knew that I had to forgive him. I couldn't hold on to the past and let it poison our relationship any longer. From that day on, my father and I worked on rebuilding our bond. It wasn't easy, and there were many bumps along the way, but we persevered. And slowly but surely we were able to heal the wounds that had torn us apart. As for Linda and her family, I learned to let go of the resentment and the hurt they had caused me. I realized that their opinions and their actions didn't define me, and I was no longer willing to let them hold power over me. I may have been disowned and kicked out of my father's home, but in the end, I found a strength within myself that I never knew I had. And that in itself was worth more than any acceptance or approval from others.